Hey everybody, and welcome to False Reality Check. I'm Buffalo Rambler.
And I am Legs.
You didn't say it this time.
Legs.
You almost said Mrs. Rambler.
I did, yes. I am Legs.
That's the name we're settling with, right? That's what we're going to go with?
It is.
All right.
Legs is here to stay
All right.
until I go to Idaho and
Say fuck everybody and you're going to say your name.
yeah,
Yeah.
become this crazy wild woman.
Good. You
then
should be.
Maybe it'll change to wild woman. I don't know.
Ooh, I like that. Married a wild woman. Well, today's episode is a wonderful one. We had two great people on. We had Cam Harless and Jessica Green. They're from the Mad Ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both hosts of the Mad Ones podcast.
Yeah. They're wonderful people, super kind with their time, and I really appreciated them coming on. I think we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about, because we're curious about their spirituality, so we talked to them about it. Did a little COVID talk, not really.
I try not to focus on it.
Yeah, but it was mostly us asking them questions and wanting to know about them more, kind of how they got started.
Yeah.
It was fun. I had a good time.
I had a great time. I think we learned a lot.
Oh yeah,
things that I didn't even think about.
Taught me a thing or two. Let me tell you.
Definitely. But we really enjoyed them coming on, and we appreciated it, and we hope they come on again. And we definitely think you should check out the Mad Ones on Rockfin and YouTube, and on their website, wearethemadOnes.com. It's a great website. I think it's designed beautifully.
Yeah, we'll put all their information in the show notes so you guys can check them out.
Definitely. Cam Harless and Jessica Green are the hosts of The Mad Ones, a podcast where they interview guests on a variety of topics like death, cryptids, philosophy, and much more. Some guests you may recognize are people like Hotep Jesus, Thaddeus Russell, John McAfee, and Scott Horton, but each of their guests comes with a unique, interesting, and bold perspective on the reality in which we find ourselves. One of our listeners reached out and suggested that we get them on, and while we may be total noobs at this podcasting thing, Cam and Jessica were gracious enough to make the time and join us on False Reality Check. It was a privilege and an honor to share this time with them, learning, growing, and sharing a piece of their world with us and sharing a piece of our world with them. Here is Cam Harless and Jessica Green, the Mad Ones. Oh, that was scary.
I was asking you if it's itchy.
It is itchy, but I will say, last night my tattoo artist messaged me and he said, I'm working on a book that I'm going to put tattoos in that I've done. I have some flash I need to do for it. Would you like one of them? And I said, yes. And so today, during work hours, I had a dentist appointment. Nice. And I now have a Mjolnir.
Nice.
So Fat Thor transformation is complete.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram. It's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, I stayed up for a second because I used hashtags, and then I started getting a lot of messages from like creepy tattoo people. And I was like, yeah, I don't like Instagram enough for this shit. Do you curse on your show? Let me ask.
Oh
that
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
okay.
Fucking curse. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome to False Reality Check. I fucked that up already, but welcome to False Reality Check, Cam and Jess from the Mad Ones. And we are big time fans of you guys. We've been listening to you for a little while. She got me going on you.
Yeah, Cam, I first heard you on Propaganda Report DNB, and you were with Monica Perez, and I was like, oh man, I wonder how this is going to go, because I wasn't sure who you were, and then you started talking and you were keeping up with Monica, and I was like, okay, this guy's the real deal. I thought your voice was like super soft and soothing.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it.
I every now and then I get a compliment on the voice, and I'm just like, oh, thank God, because I'm from Alabama. You would expect more of a drawl coming out of my mouth, but it didn't happen. So,
no, but it worked.
It works.
Yeah, you guys worked out really well, and I was like, I got to check out this podcast. And then I heard Jessica and you together, and you guys just work so well.
You guys are hilarious.
And your content is just fire.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of a favorite episode so far. I'm not super deep in, but every episode that I've listened to so far, it's been like I can't pick one that I like more than the other. It's just they just get better.
That's great.
It's just like, yeah. So we really enjoy
especially
it.
especially with our new direction. We have shifted our focus, and so it's good to hear that as that shift is taking over, the quality is increasing, and that makes me really happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. We listen to obviously a bunch of other podcasts, and it gets tiring hearing same old, and you guys really put together some good guests and different topics each time. Like the other night we watched the one on stoicism that you guys did.
Oh man.
Had no idea what that was about. Now I know a little bit more, and seems like in my life I'm unknowingly a stoic, like the way I go through my life. And yeah, maybe we are a little stoic and we just don't know it. I don't know.
I always wanted to know what that was, and I kept watching videos on YouTube, but every video was super boring, and it was just very drawn out. And talking to Kim, right? That's her name?
Yes.
Yeah, Kim.
She just nail on the head, perfect explanation, and you get it. Perfect. Like I don't know. I'm glad you know her. It worked out perfectly, because now I'm like, this is a philosophy I can get behind.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, not next week, but the week after, I don't know if you know Nick Pacone from, he's gone through a few names on his show. Right now it's Misfit Family. It was Peace Freaks before. And he actually studied some philosophy as well. And after he heard our episode with Allie on postmodernism, he was like, okay, I studied this. I would like to delve more deeply and kind of correct some things that I thought was not explained well. And he goes, I also want to talk about other philosophies. So we're going to have another philosophy episode real soon. So
nice.
Maybe some cool stuff will come out of that.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
I think it's great that this new with the intellectual dark web that came out, and the people that were, involved in that, Jordan Peterson and the new thought leaders that kind of sprung out there from Joe Rogan's little crew, all this new thinking coming out. And there's kind of like I wouldn't say new schools of philosophy. It's just almost looking at philosophy in a new way. And it's really drawing me in to kind of understand myself better. How is it? Have you felt the same way, or
about the intellectual dark web?
About this new way of bringing philosophy into the culture, into the discussion, and how people are bringing it back?
I think it's good that we're having conversations about philosophy now. Personally, because you hear a lot of people talk about philosophy, and a lot of the people you run into don't know what they're talking about, or they read this much or read this person who was a bad teacher on the subject. And you end up with a lot of pop philosophy that's very shallow and surface level. And I took some philosophy classes in college, but I hated philosophy because I had those dum-dums in my classes who would bring up the same things every time. There was one guy who, anytime the word postmodernism came up, he started going into diatribes about how tables don't exist. And then there was another guy, literally he was stuck on the concept of soul. And so every time we'd have a class, he would start talking about Frankenstein's monster and what that meant for humans and their souls. And I'm like, first, fiction. Second, why do you keep saying it every class?
Wow.
Oh boy.
I'm not a philosopher. I don't know a lot about philosophy. So a lot of this is kind of hitting me for the very first time. My only experience with philosophy is that in college, I took a world religions class. And just before that class was a philosophy class taught by the same teacher. And in the desk that I would sit in was one of those kids that Cam was talking about, who was still sitting there 15 minutes after his class had ended, trying to talk to the professor about stuff I didn't care about. And so I would literally stand there with my hands on my hips, like, get out of my chair, guy. And that was my experience with philosophy. I didn't like it. But yeah, to have someone like, Kim and Nick Pacone, who's always a good time, no matter what you're talking about, like, come on and make that stuff accessible is great. And I do think, it's funny that you mentioned Jordan Peterson, because for someone like me, he did make some of those ideas accessible. His popularity kind of blew up. And I heard a lot of those things that were needed in my life at the time that I heard them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm grateful to that sort of, I guess we call it the intellectual dark web, for kind of cropping up when it did, because it was definitely a life jacket for me.
I agree. Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read any of Jordan Peterson's work. I've watched a lot of his interviews and a lot of his lectures. I kind of wanted to go see him. I didn't get a chance because COVID happened and everything kind of shut down, and then he was sick for a while. So I would like to one day, check him out. Like, I heard that he actually meets people afterward and discusses things with them, and I think it'd be really important to do that. How much of your spirituality comes into your personal philosophy? Because now that we're kind of talking about philosophy, and you are a spiritual person, and Cam, you're a spiritual person as well, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in biblical studies, so a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a bit.
But I still make dirty jokes on a podcast, so I mean, I think I'm accessible.
Yes.
It's a balance. Yeah.
Please keep doing that.
I mean, I spent a good portion of my adult life as not just an atheist, but like an angry atheist.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think that I don't want to speak for other people who are atheists, so I'll only speak for myself in this regard. But I would say that no one talks about God that much, even if it's in a negative sense, if they don't on some level believe in him. So it became apparent to me that it was not that I did not believe in God, it was that I was angry with God, and I was angry with God because I didn't understand God. And the more educated I became, the less angry I became. And now I found, that God plays a huge role in my life, and I'm much happier as a result of it. So, yeah, the impact of the question you just asked for me is enormous, life changing, beyond measure. I could go on with adjectives, but I won't.
And for me, like I have kind of the opposite story. Like, I've been in the church my whole life, and I grew up in the church. I went to Bible college eventually. I studied film at Bible college, and then I was like, oh wow, I don't want to spend $35,000 in the last year. Let me pay this out of pocket, and just went to another one online. Paid $70 a class. I'm telling you, I made such a mistake going to college.
God,
But
I agree.
like my entire that's been one of the frustrations that I've had a lot of times with, like, I love a lot of libertarians, but there are a lot of them out there that make me struggle, because my whole life philosophy, my worldview is centered around Jesus and Christianity.
Right.
And so there are a lot of these things that's like, yes, I can say that I don't want anyone thrown into jail for prostitution. No, I don't want anyone thrown into jail for hard drugs or any of this stuff, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to be fighting for those things. I'm not going to be fighting to normalize these things. I'm not going to be fighting for things that I think are harmful, in the very least. Like, I don't even have to say sinful, harmful to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight for those. And so it colors it completely. I've had a lot of conversations with libertarians and anarchists, and like, I can get real pedantic when I talk about that, because there's so many labels, and I kind of struggle with labels anyway. So if I have one, I need it to be precise. So it's like, my semantics have to be correct. And so, like, I'll talk in generalities. Like, for the last several years, I would say, if you're not into anarchist philosophy, I would say I'm a libertarian, or basically a libertarian. If you know what anarchism is, I would say I'm an anarchist. If you are Christian, I'm going to be very, very precise, and I'm going to say I'm a patient monarchist, because I do believe there's a ruler.
Yeah.
And so I'm not forcing that on anyone else, but in order to be precise, I have to say that no rulers doesn't really apply to me. And I feel like that's the way I can be the most honest.
I've been trying to explain little bits of anarchy to my wife, and you kind of just summed up a little bit of your personal philosophy on it. Would you both, I guess, consider yourselves anarchists, or just libertarian as a blanket kind of label, if you want to label it?
I'll be honest with you. Right now, I'm struggling with the label at all. because the longer I live and the more that I interact with certain people, the less I want to be connected to this large of a collective of people. And so, when you say I'm a libertarian, people have automatic assumptions and connections to specific people or events or naked people dancing on Libertarian Party platforms or Gary John. They have these things. And so anarchist is an even harder sell. I still use anarchist. I very rarely use libertarian anymore, just because I don't know, man. I'm kind of bummed out. I'm like he said, you listen to all these podcasts and you're like, I'm hearing the same things over and over again. I'm getting kind of bored. I reached the zenith of being bored and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Let's explore the rest of the world. Let's as Jessica said in the past, let me explore the garden, the whole garden, instead of sticking in one spot.
Yeah. I mean, intellectualism, philosophy, all of those different things, it is a garden and you are free to wander it. So you don't have to, just because you've stopped to smell one flower and you like it, doesn't mean you have to linger there forever and not explore the rest of the garden. That would be a great crime, especially to the creator of the human mind, for you to do that. Also, I realized pretty recently, Cam and I have been having this discussion ongoing. And I realized pretty recently, like, when's the last time in life you've met someone and they asked you, what's your political philosophy? It's not really like a common question you get on the street, right?
A lot of people don't want to know.
Yeah.
They don't, right? It also invites a lot of animosity these days to ask that kind of question. So it's like, I thought about it and I was like, do I even really have to have an answer to this question? Maybe not necessarily. And I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer for that question too.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I've kind of thought about and the way I've talked about it is, there are certain beliefs that I have and ideas and concepts that I'm willing to talk about all day long. And so when you break it down and you ask, are you a libertarian? Are you an anarchist? Are you these things? If your rubric is kind of the non-aggression axiom, if it's, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, the golden rule, as Jesus did.
Exactly.
Yes, I am that. But I get tired of, I feel like there are a lot of people in the wider libertarian world that I don't know if you've paid too much attention to my Twitter feed. I am a troll.
Yeah.
And
I love your feed.
and I have fun, but I keep running into these little corners of Twitter where I'm like, you're just being edgy for edgy's sake. There's not even humor in this, or you're just being obnoxious, and that's become your persona. And I'm like, I'm tired, man. I just want to talk about good things. I want to talk about things that are interesting. I want to talk about bad things too. I mean, I've done it all week, the last 2 weeks with Brad on the propaganda report. And it was so funny. Someone messaged me and they're like, I love how much preparation you do when you get on the propaganda report. And I was like, what preparation?
So are you like scrambling last minute?
No, so with Brad and with Monica before, I'll bring on some different stories and I'll read those stories, but that's the long and the short of it. Like there was this, I think it was this week or last week, I can't remember which. Brad and I talked about France and how France is kind of revolting now because of the vaccine passports.
Yeah.
And I had a realization while I was talking to Brad, because I was like, why is it that Australia, Italy, France can all stand up and rebel like Americans should, but Americans aren't? And then I had to stop, and I don't know, I haven't listened back, but I had to stop and I was like, oh no, I understand why. Because they've been asked for their papers before by very nefarious people. And we don't have that cultural memory where they do.
Good point.
And so it's like, did I plan that? No, I was just like I was just like, God, I hope that sounded smarter than it felt coming out of my mouth. I felt like I stammered.
No, that is a great point.
That's a criticism I think that a lot of people will level at Jordan Peterson, because while they're talking to him, if they present a question to him that they're hoping will be a gotcha, he stops and he thinks about it. And then he actually goes through his thought process in front of you. And people will say, oh, you weren't prepared for this, you weren't prepared for that. And I'm like, no, I see a man who's thinking carefully before he gives you an answer to the question that you just asked him.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to just like let fly. I think when I was early to podcasting and I was doing long preparation notes and trying to read every single thing before I ever went live, I would be much more nervous than I would be if you just threw stuff at me and then I just had to deal with it in the moment. And I think the quality of response can be a little more elevated if you just have to think about what you say before you say it instead of preparing, if that makes sense. Like a prepared thought versus a something that you actually thought about.
Yeah. Something organic.
Organic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I started the show. It was actually started with Kim from our last episode. It was called "Make Liberty Great Again," tongue-in-cheek Trump pun, and we started it and did a few episodes, but then I rebooted it a couple of years ago. That's where the numbering system. That's how the Mad Ones is at episode 106, I think now. Is I had started again, and when I started, I was scripting everything. I stupidly thought, let's make a Liberty late night show.
Oh boy.
And I was like, oh, this is a good idea. I like late night. And what I didn't realize at that time was that late night had already died. And then COVID and the government's response was its death knell. It was the nail in the coffin. And so I was presenting news, I was talking about news, and I got so bored. And when I decided, and when Jessica came along around the time, like she started coming on as a guest around the time, I just was like, I'm doing something new, and I went freeform. And that was freeing to me. And as we did it, we ended up talking to a lot of libertarian people, and we had some good conversations. We talked to some really cool people. We talked to Scott Horton. We talked to Thaddeus Russell. We talked to Hotep Jesus. We had some interesting conversations with people, but I got bored, and Jessica got bored. Like it's so funny how in sync Jessica and I are, and we've never met in person. Like it's kind of hilarious how often we are having thoughts at the same time. And she sends something to me and I'm like, no, that's what I was thinking. Like when we decided to move it to the Mad Ones, I was joking, I think, on the show that I'm just going to keep you guesting until you take the co-hosting gig. And then one day I started writing a book. I never finished it. I wrote the introduction and that was it. And it was I named it The Mad Ones because when I was a teenager, I listened to I watched a concert by Switchfoot, and John Foreman got up and read that little passage from that Jack Kerouac poem that the show is named after. And as I was writing it, it just kind of clicked into place, and I made some art. I thought about it. I put everything together. I sent Jessica a message on Twitter, and I just sent her the picture of the art, and she was like, "That's really pretty." And I was like, "Thank you." I was like, "So I'm thinking of rebranding, and I think that you should come on permanently, and that this should be our thing, and we should kind of start from scratch in a sense." And she was like, "I was thinking about that today because I was talking to a friend who makes music, and he was saying, if you ever need something for a project, you can use my music." We didn't end up using it. I'm sorry, Jessica's friend, but
it's fine.
My creative brain just had to, like, I really wanted some of that outlaw country feel, some of the grunginess feel to what we were doing. And it was just so funny because it was just simpatico. We were in the same place. She was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then what was it? 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, I had everything put together to start over. So
that's awesome. Oh man, what a journey. I enjoyed your Waco segment that you did.
Oh my
I did enjoy Red Pill of the Week. I will say that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I did those red pills. I started them as I was going to do them it was because it's called Red Pill of the Week because I was doing them weekly, and that was the plan. and then I hit Ruby Ridge, and then Waco. And I think I have maybe 6 in all. I'm not sure the numbers, but I hit Waco, and the end of December and the first 2 months of 2020 was me studying Waco. And it was hard. And I really like telling stories. I really like the narrative and trying to draw you in with ambiance sounds and stuff like that. But I got to the end of it and I was so depressed. And I was like, I know this is a good product. It's like at that point, this was before we did the Mad Ones. I was like, my download numbers were like 5 or 6 times all the other episodes for those. And it was thrown on to the Libertarian Institute through my friend Ryan. And I was like, these are really good. And then I was like, I'll do Oklahoma City next. And then I just never did it because it's emotionally horrifying.
That one's gonna be really hard.
Yeah. I needed just listening to the Waco episode. I participated in that as a listener, and I needed a hug afterward because they're really emotionally taxing even to listen to. But I think they illustrate a story that I was barely maybe 9 or 10 years old when that happened. So I remember seeing things on TV and then was told, oh, those are just bad guys. Don't worry about it. Okay. And, I'm old now. So all of the younger people than me, they've never heard this story before. They don't know what this is. And the only thing they've ever heard was, oh no, the government, burned out a bunch of cult members. It was fine. If they've heard about the story at all. So I think, it's a very valuable piece of work that he's made and should be shared for sure. So if you guys want to check out the Red Pill of the Week, the Waco files, they're on our podcast.
Yeah, and I'll keep that one. They're on YouTube, and I'll keep that open. That'll just stay there. What's funny though is that is how I met Monica, because I had some friends, my friends Jesse and Maddie. I edit their show Voluntary Vixens. And they had her on. I didn't know who she was. I don't know if I listened to the episode when I edited it, because it was when I was doing a heavy workload. So I was just listening for noises and editing as I go, but not comprehending, because I can shut my brain off like that. But I had shared it and Monica shared it. And I was just like, oh, wow, thank you so much. You have a much bigger audience. I had never heard of or listened to Monica before, and we just became friends. So like that is the thing with my relationship. Our relationship with Monica is she's my friend. Brad is my friend. And so when she was like, I want to be able to go on vacation and I don't want to have to shut down everything, I was like, well, just let me know. I'll see what I can do to help. I don't know what I can help with. And she was just like, here, take the show.
Okay. Just to clarify, I grew up in Atlanta, and Monica was on the radio in Atlanta when I was a teenager.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So for me, it was like the first time I was on a podcast with Monica, that was like meeting a huge celebrity to me. Like I was a little bit starstruck, to be honest. And she's actually like so down to earth and so fun and so cool. So very quickly I became comfortable with her. But I remember telling my mom that I was going to be on a show with Monica Perez. And she was so impressed with it that she told all her friends, oh, Jessica's going to be on the radio with Monica Perez.
Oh,
I was like, no, Mom, YouTube, totally different. Not going to be on the radio. So I don't know how the ladies at church dealt with that, but yeah, for me it was like meeting like a huge celebrity because she used to be on the Monica Perez show on WSB TV. I grew up listening to her. She red pilled me before I knew what red pills were. Oh, as like a 15-year-old.
So cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Celebrity.
Have you always been kind of like leaning to the conservative point of view, or
no? My early years as a teenager, like especially like right after post 9/11, which I think I was about 16 when 9/11 happened, I was indistinguishable from a war hawk neocon. I think a lot of people were, because they were like, let's get some vengeance, let's turn that place into a parking lot. That's the phrase that sticks in my mind a lot when I think about 9/11, is because I heard so many people say, turn that place into a parking lot. And I never really forgot it, because it's like the ignoring the human toll that would come from that feeling that was pretty widespread, especially among the people where I lived, actually played out, and in a lot of ways has come to pass.
Yeah.
And I so that phrase echoes in my mind when I think about the government interventions that have occurred for the last 20 years since then. But as many young women in my age group did through the early 2010s, I took on the whole fourth wave feminism,
Wow.
anti-God, Facebook identity, social justice warrior identity that many women in my age group took on. And I embraced it fully, and I was hardcore about it. I destroyed friendships and family relationships over it.
Wow.
And it was a miracle, a strange miracle of events that actually led me away from it and broke me free of what I term a cult. I was in an ideological cult. And the only reason that I got free of that cult is because Rand Paul's neighbor decided to try to kick his ass. And he failed at it. But it was a horrible act of violence. And even through all of my, psychoses that I was holding on to at that time, I recognized that political violence is a terrible thing. I'm enough of a student of history to say this is not a path that we want to go down, you guys. And my in-group, my friend group, rolled on me like a crocodile with prey, just instantaneously rolled on me. I got viciously attacked. I had all these weird cyber attacks happen to me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the remove cloth, show bobs meme.
No.
It's like Indian men will message women and say, like, really, because they don't, I guess they're not, their English is a second language. So it'll be like, hey, remove cloth, show your bobs.
Oh.
So I would get like 50 of these DMs a day. Wow. It was like somebody had written my name on a digital bathroom wall somewhere, all because I had said that political violence against Republicans is probably not the route we want to take. And because of that, because of getting ousted from my in-group, I was in like a politically homeless place for long enough that somebody turned me on to Tom Woods. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him. Had someone suggested Tom Woods to me just a year before that had happened, I would be like, no way, Nazi, neo-Confederate, get that guy out of here. But because I was in this unique place, I was willing to listen to people whose ideologies didn't agree with mine. And it turned out this guy made so much sense, and he was so reasonable. And my entire socialist ideology was built on the idea that I cared about what happens to poor people. I want poverty to be reduced. And that's still the truth. I don't want people to live in poverty. And I realized, becoming more educated, that socialism was not the path to accomplishing that. And so that opened up sort of the world of libertarianism for me. I went through my whole taxation is theft phase and all of those things. But I'm actually, as painful as it was to be kicked out of my cult, I'm enormously grateful that it happened, because I was very cut off. I was not allowed to wander the garden of my mind. And being kicked out of my cult allowed me to actually do that. So I'm, to this day, enormously grateful to them for kicking me out.
That's so good. Well, I'm thankful that you are not crazy anymore.
I don't know. That's going a little far.
Yeah. I remember you talking about the previous, I forgot who was your guys' guest. I think it was Mike Maharry. When you were talking about political violence and how it's not okay. And that's something I'm struggling with. I mean, the parasite class, they're human beings. I get it. We need to look at the evil and not the person. The evil is taking them over. But
yes,
my struggle is applying that logic to pedos. I don't see them as human beings. I don't know how you guys deal with that or how you would.
Do you want to, Cam?
Did I strike a nerve?
I don't know if you see above my lit glasses of bourbon behind me, but there you see this right here is a ball peen hammer.
Yeah.
This is how I feel that pedophiles ought to be dealt with. So yes, I do think that our struggle is against evil. It's not necessarily against humans, but I do firmly still believe in natural rights. I believe that if you hurt me, if you hurt my children, I will end you in a brutal fashion. And it's actually something that Jessica and I were talking about the other night, because I use a picture of one on Twitter, and eventually I'm going to get a tattoo of ball peen hammer as well.
Nice.
But we were talking about it because it is a very stark and jarring image of violence that I use, and it's very intentional. Sometimes it's just sarcastic, like, because I mean, you apply it to the dumb things, and it's just like, okay, chill out, Cam. It's funny to me, at least. I have fun. But when I see these things, I do think that I'm as close to you as you can get to a pacifist, without being one, because like I don't believe in violence that is, I don't believe in starting aggression. I don't believe in not doing things proportionally, but I do believe in defense. I do believe in ending, violent threats. I believe that, and I would say this is something that is still kind of holds in my mind from my more conservative days. But I do truly believe that it is worse. Worse is hard. I think they're probably equal. But if you molest, rape a child at all, I consider that equal to murder.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that is proportional violence would be, and I'm sure this is, hey, Spotify, don't take their episode down.
It's okay. It would be an honor, actually, if they did.
But I do believe that if I walked into a situation like we talked with our new friend Chris Baker the other day, who tattoos over sex trafficking tattoos, and we both were like, we would love to be the guys that are on the motorcycles with the hammers that take care of the issue.
Yeah.
But we're doing the more peaceful thing, because I don't want to ruin my life and my kids' lives over this. But have you ever seen that video? It was in an airport. There was a child, I can't remember his name. There was a child who was abducted by his karate teacher and taken, I think, across the country to California or something. And his dad had found out about this. And what his dad also found out was that he had been grooming him and sexually assaulting his son. And so he got his son back, but this man who did it was coming into the city that he was living in to be prosecuted for this. And as that man walked past the phone banks, the ones you put quarters in, this father was behind. He was in the news shot of this guy coming through, and he turned around with, I think it was a 38 snub nose, shot him, took him out.
I think I have seen
I think I have seen
Fine
that
with
footage.
that.
Yeah.
I think he did the right thing.
Yeah. I think so.
So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this book, Hunting the Jackal by Billy Waugh, or know who Billy Waugh is.
No.
Billy Waugh was an assassin for the US government, basically. He took out and killed some very bad people in the world. I am not necessarily a supporter of all of the interventions and actions of the US government, but if you look into the history of Billy Waugh, you will become thankful to this man for the things that he has done in this world. Possibly, I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly did. He's an interesting character. Look into Billy Waugh. But he wrote this book called Hunting the Jackal. And there are two quotes at the beginning of this book that I would like to read to you, which sort of symbolize my opinions, I think, on this issue. The first one is from George Orwell, and it says, "We sleep safe in our beds because rough men stand at the ready in the night to visit violence on those who would do us harm." And then the second quote comes from the Bible, Isaiah 6:8. "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, Here I am, send me.'"
Oh,
And yeah, so now it's a matter of scale, right? Because like Rand Paul obviously is not someone who deserves the ball peen hammer. And so for my friends to be like, yeah, too bad his neighbor didn't kill him, I think my reaction was appropriate to be like, you guys are crazy. This is not too much. But when it comes to a situation like Legs brought up, the pedophile situation, here I am, send me.
Yeah.
Like I don't wish death on anyone. I really hope that they're able to, and this is very Christian, I very much hope that they're able to find God, they're able to find forgiveness. I wish that. But when John McCain dies, I don't feel sad.
Well, I would kind of agree with you there, though. Yeah, I mean, I'm
I'm very pro brain tumor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that brain tumor in particular. I'm not pro brain tumor for everyone. I'll just say that.
In general,
that's a bad thing. But for him, I'll make an exception, I suppose.
I just feel like that brain tumor probably saved a lot of lives.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Probably kept us out of more war.
So what she's saying is there are some bad people who've gotten killed that it's okay. So Jessica, you're trying to say that whoever killed Hitler is a hero, right?
I mean, Hitler probably killed himself. So in that scenario, is Hitler the hero?
You happened upon the joke.
I don't know, but certainly the people who tried to kill him along the way have my respect. There's the Valkyrie people for sure who orchestrated the failed attempt to bomb Hitler. Unfortunately, they took out or maybe fortunately, they took some other guys out with them. But yeah, they tried and they failed, but they gave it the college effort, and I appreciate them for that.
Oh man, yeah, that's such a great story.
Yeah. Oh man,
it was hard to watch in a movie though, because you know what's going to happen, you know they're going to fail, so you're like, God dang it. I mean, I'm watching this, what's this suspense for? We know that they fail. Like,
exactly. That's why you have to watch Inglourious Bastards, because then you know that's a completely alternative. It didn't happen, but you kind of wish it did, you know?
Yeah, you get to see Hitler's face shot right off.
Exactly.
Like, so there's a series right now about the life of Jesus called The Chosen. I don't know if you guys have heard of it at all.
Yeah, but watching that, she keeps telling me, you need to watch it.
It's really good. But aside from that, I was trying to get my priest to watch it to find out what his opinion of it was. And he did, and he gave me his opinion. But the funniest thing he said about it was, but I'm going to keep watching it because I have to find out how it turns out.
But it's already written down.
Which for an Orthodox priest, that's a great joke. Like,
oh my God. Do they not have a lot of sense of humor? I mean, they wear the hats though, right?
Well, yeah, so the first time I encountered him, or rather the first time my husband encountered him, because he had the very intimidating looking hat on, he said, "Oh, he looks intimidating." But the guy has a ponytail. So like, how intimidating can he be? You know, like, no, he's actually one of the kindest, sweetest, most wonderful people that I've ever met in my life. And the hat will throw you off for sure. But yeah.
I always enjoyed the hats.
Yes.
I had in high school, I had a close friend. Well, he was kind of a close friend. We were in junior statesman together because we like to debate each other. And he was Egyptian Orthodox. So he would talk to me a lot about the Orthodox faith. And at the time I was actually looking into Buddhism more. I was born Mormon and got baptized Mormon when I was 8. And kind of, we stopped going when I was like 10, 11, maybe. And went through that whole like atheist journey, like you were describing, went through that kind of heretical phase, I suppose.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't consider myself a Christian because I don't go to church. I have, read portions of the Bible. I like a lot of the stories in the Bible because I think they have a lot of strong meaning for everyone's life if you just read it, for the story, for the narrative and the principle behind it. And my parents would consider themselves, I guess, Christian.
Mhm.
Um, is there room, because I would be a little bit more spiritual, so I tend to believe in things like reincarnation might be real, maybe. um is there room in that for in Christianity? Is there room in that for people to believe something that way, or
I
is it just
would
a one
I feel like that's a Cam question.
I would say that if I'm trying not to make this too jokey. Yes, but the reincarnation is into your own body at the end.
It's a good answer. Yeah.
after everything, right?
After everything, you come back as you. That would be so. Yes, it is kind of reincarnation would be a you'd have to have a completely different epistemology and an understanding of the world of spirituality. I think that that's the thing. So a lot of people will go with the all roads lead to the same place. All that you climb the mountain, you get to God.
Mhm.
Most religions would disagree with you because that most of them truly believe that they are the way. Christianity definitely does. Came right out of Jesus's mouth. But I do think that there are some Christians who would disagree with me, but I do think that God is calling you. Jesus is calling you to himself. And that when you're having these thoughts and when you're processing your own spirituality, it's people seem to think that Christian spirituality is not as spiritual as other Eastern religions, because Christianity is an Eastern religion, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
a Middle Eastern one, but it's still an Eastern religion.
Exactly.
And it's
Very much so.
extremely spiritual. It's just there are a lot of different flavors of Christianity as well. So I mean, I'm on the in the more non-denominational. I was raised charismatic, so I'm in that world. I'm in a little bit more free-form relational kind of aspect of Christianity, where Jessica is she's exploring the Greek Orthodox Church, which is more based on rites in a lot of ways. It's very liturgical. And so there's a lot of structure. I mean, there's structure in all Christian churches, but there is, like, I grew up charismatic, so it's so funny when people say, I'm more spiritual. So I'm just like, dude, I mean, I grew up in the spiritual.
Yeah.
Like we're on the same page, just in different books right now. We'll figure it out. Let's walk together and see what we can figure out together.
Well, one thing I'll point out too is that there was hundreds of years of the faith before there was a Bible.
Mhm.
And the Jesus movement is centuries removed, from the actual like codifying of the Bible itself. So I find a lot of spiritual wisdom in the works of the saints, the writings of the saints. And I am like in a love affair with the writings of St. Paul right now, who I am reminded of, obviously, by what you're saying. He talks about how we have milk before we have meat. And so there are things that maybe later in our spiritual path, or for the monk, the monastic, the priest, it's stuff they wouldn't touch. But for you, it's drawing you up the mountain. Well, that's the right direction. So, don't reject milk before you have meat, is what I would say to that.
What are you guys' opinions on the books that didn't make it? Well,
Yeah,
that got removed from the Bible,
or they weren't canonized into the
the
Bible,
like Gospel Thomas or
The Shepherd of Hermas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just say there are a lot of books of the Bible that didn't make it, that were pseudepigraphal. So they were like, the book of Enoch is pseudepigraphal. It was not written by Enoch.
Mhm.
It was written later, probably around the time of the exile. And so it is a book of wisdom. It very much colors the like the Second Temple worldview. And so it covers what Jesus would have been learning from. I think it was Jude who mentioned the book of Enoch in the Bible. So there's definitely some good knowledge there. But I think when it comes down to it, I'm not a Catholic, so I'm not going to, fight for Catholicism and what they've done. But the rubrics, from what I understand over time, was the agreement within them. It was it written by an apostle? Was it written? And so there are a lot of books, and people. I've had a lot of people kind of mention books, but not even know that the author matters. And so I would say with a lot of these, the author matters, the content matters. Especially in the early church, the first century, there were a lot of Gnostics who very much disagreed with Christian spirituality and even Judaism. And so they believed that the body and the material world was evil, and that the only good was the soul, the spiritual realm. And so the Bible, especially Genesis, talks about the mindful creation of man from God. And so to call this the spiritual and physical creation evil doesn't work. And so there were a lot of Gnostic texts thrown out because they disagreed with Genesis. And so it's a hard question to answer because you have to drill down on each book.
Right.
And so there's plenty of wisdom, like the intertestamental period, the books that are in the Catholic Bible, the Apocrypha. A lot of those, they call it the intertestamental period because there was this gap between prophets and Jesus. So there were prophets up until this point, and then there were no prophets, and then Jesus was on the scene. And so all of those tell good stories, but they're not necessarily books that tell you about Jesus or about the overall meta narrative of the Bible. So it's a big question, and I think it deserves a level of granularity in study.
Mm-hmm. There's a book that I'm reading right now called The Sayings of the Desert Fathers. And it's a lot of the people who lived sort of in between the Jesus movement and the codifying of the Bible. And so you'll find a lot of the things by, say, St. Ignatius, St. Anthony the Great, people like this who sort of lived in that sort of in-between period before the sola scriptura people could even begin to read the book. I think the Sayings of the Desert Fathers is wonderful. If you're looking for a little bit of reading outside of just the codified Bible, try that one. It's great because the sayings are actually generally pretty short. So you can go through a chapter, read a bunch of the short sayings, get what you need out of them, and then come back to it later. And a lot of mental log jam has been broken up for me by some of these works by these men who, if you were just a sola scriptura, which means by the Bible alone, you would never even have access to these writers. And so that's a shame, I think. I mean, you don't have to necessarily say, okay, these are the apostolic fathers. But these are still men who, and women, because it's there's actually, depending on who you get to edit the book, it will be the Sayings of the Desert Fathers and Mothers. So it depends. There are women as well. That you would lose some of the color and some of the variety that these people, and some of the great teachings that these people would have to offer you. Yes, they didn't get codified in the Bible, but historically it was an emperor, a Byzantine emperor, I believe, who said, okay, I'm going to pay to have this book produced. And if the emperor of a great empire says, I'm going to produce your work, you don't say, oh, we haven't really decided which books are in and which books are out yet. You say, yes, thank you, I'll take it. And then you decide which books go in and which books go out. So that context may have some bearing on how you view only Bible versus maybe some of the rest of the works of the saints. I mean, the works of St. John of Damascus or St. Anthony the Great, these are wonderful teachings from very pious Christian people who I think deserve their due and look.
And I will say that sola scriptura, I would say that probably defines me in some sense, but that's more of a pushback against tradition and taking it whole cloth rather than reading these things, because it's not that, I can't read the book of Enoch, or I can't learn from the saints. It's that I don't have to go and find out what some pope 400 years ago said ex cathedra and take that into my belief system,
Right.
if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah, that's perfect sense to me, actually. Yeah.
So would you call yours, Cam, your spirituality and belief in the Bible more interpretive then? Because it kind of, since you're, I guess I'm not even going to try it. Solo, what is it? Solo scriptura?
Sola scriptura
Sola
means
scriptura?
by the Bible
Yeah.
alone.
Since you would consider yourself that, would you say that it's more up to interpretation or understanding? Since
I
you
would
let's go for it.
I would say that um I will say that I think that the Bible is the place to go for answers. I will also say that a lot of times, over time, there have been a lot of bad actors within Christianity. There have been people who have thrown theologies in or read a verse in the Bible and read it on its face without taking in things like context, the history, where it was. One of the first conversations I had with Jessica was, okay, what's up with this Paul guy and why doesn't he like women?
Yeah.
Because of the letter to Timothy about, don't let the women speak in church. And it's like, so here's the deal. Timothy was in Ephesus. Ephesus was a city that was built on the worship of Artemis, a pagan god. A lot of the women that lived in that area were temple prostitutes or priestesses within this religion. And on top of that, a lot of them didn't know how to read. A lot of them hadn't had any of the historical framework of Judaism at all. And so there were people who were speaking counter to Paul or Timothy and causing issues insofar as they didn't know what they were talking about, and they were screwing stuff up. Or as I would put it, they were fucking shit up, guys. And so that you have to read the Bible in its time, in its place, and how it was meant. That's why the book of Enoch and a lot of these like second temple writings are so important. One of the books that I read semi-recently, was a book called The Unseen Realm. And so it kind of sets the record straight as to how people viewed the spiritual world in the time of Jesus and in the time before, and how the ancient Jewish people saw these things. Because there's like, if you're reading the Bible and you see the Lord in all caps, you may or may not know that means that written in that place was the tetragrammaton, which is right here on my arm, which is YHWH, Yahweh. They wouldn't say it, so the scribes and the Jews, they took the taking the Lord's name in vain to an extreme, and so they wouldn't write it, they wouldn't say it, and there are these little things that you don't know. Like sometimes Jesus called God Abba, which means father or dad. And there are all these little things that it colors the whole scripture. And these are simple. These are not exactly like deep or important in a lot of ways, in theological ways, but just that alone, that there are a lot of people who don't realize these little conventions, tells you that when they're reading a scripture out of a country they've never been to, in a time they were never in a place they couldn't understand, in a culture that they wouldn't be able to tell apart from any other culture at that point, maybe they need to do their due diligence. Maybe they don't know what they're talking about.
And then also you're talking about, we're translating from Hebrew to Greek to Old English to Standard American English. There's a lot of game of telephone that happens when you're looking at a thing like that. So understanding these books in their context is enormously important. And yeah, history of the people of the time writing those books and who they're writing these books to is very important. Epistles are letters.
Right.
They're being written to a specific person. yes, there's a lot of value to that letter, and why it's been transferred into a book is because it has great value, but it's a letter. So like St. Paul's epistle to the Romans is a letter to the Christian churches in Rome, which are very different from the Christian churches that would have existed in Jerusalem. So, the context which he would have been speaking to Gentiles with would have been much different than that of he would have been speaking to Jews with, so on and so forth. So, and then even then you have ancient Greek is different from modern Greek. So it's not like you could know Greek and then understand these translations. There's a lot of layers to it.
And that's what's great about like the Dead Sea Scrolls and a lot of these other books that are being found that are even older than the texts that were originally taken in, older than the Vulgate, older than all of these other versions and translations of the Bible, is you get to look at them and go, okay, so this was here, this was here. I can take this to an even older place to understand it. But yeah, I think that it's like you heard her. She says, I'm really loving St. Paul right now, and I'm like, I really hope that I had something to do with that.
Yeah, no. It's St. Paul is a great villain to the feminist set. Really? And yes. And I definitely fell in with that crowd. And it was always brought up that he said, well, this guy says you should submit to your husbands and women should be forbidden to teach, and this all, so on and so forth. So when I first met Cam, I was just dipping my toe into Christianity. And he has that, you see it on the wall behind him. He has a biblical studies degree. And I said, hey, man, let me ask you, what's up with this sexist dude, Paul? And so he, as we just sort of laid it out for you guys, explained it to me. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's a horse of a different color entirely. To start looking into the history, start looking into St. Paul. Now I am like in a love affair with his writings, because Romans 12, you hear a lot of actually like libertarians and anarchists bring up Romans 13 and they'll discuss it into the ground. And no one even bothers to read Romans 12, which is a beautiful piece of work and just so pivotal to me spiritually. I'm like, man, you guys are focused on the wrong Romans here. So I adore St. Paul, and he was an intense guy. There's no coloring that in a pastel. He was that man. If he had been into knitting, he would have just been a really intense knitter. Like, he was just a really intense guy. So there is some intensity to his writing. There's no doubt about that. But him writing from thousands of years ago applies to my life now in 2021 as though he were having an intimate friendship with me. And that's incredible. And the fact that he's painted such as a villain should be your first clue that maybe he has something valuable to say. Anytime someone is put up on a pyre like that, you should say, why are they trying to silence this man? Maybe he's got something I need.
Yeah, that's true. How has your growth in your spirituality and with your families been affected by this whole like lockdown? And I know, Cam, you're lucky because you're in Florida, and Florida seems to be open and normal for the most part. But we're in California and it's hell here.
I was not in Florida when it started. I had moved to Pennsylvania to work with a friend of mine, and we were there for 7 months. And March came around. I had talked on my show about coronavirus, like briefly before it even was labeled a pandemic. And I just got a really bad feeling about this, And so I went to Wawa and I grabbed my hoagie, and the lady in front of me, Cuomo had started doing his thing about that time. And she said to the person behind the counter, I really wish Governor Wolf had the balls that Cuomo has. And I said, oh no, who am I living next to? I don't want to do this. March 17th, St. Patty's Day, I wanted to get a bottle of Jameson, a bottle of Irish cream so I could make an Irish car bomb. Yeah, which is apparently very, very insulting to the Irish. But I
Can't
went
imagine
in.
why.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Very, very offensive, but I have their blood, and I like their whiskey, so it'll be okay. But I walked into the liquor store and I was getting those two liquors, or a liquor and a liqueur. And when I walked in, I saw that there was like plywood next to the front window and a hammer out. And I went through the line and I got my whiskey, and she says, "Good you came today, because we're actually closing down after tonight." Because one of Wolf's first things was to take away something that people get addicted to and can't cope without. And I said, "So is that what and she said, "Yeah, we're boarding it up tonight." And they boarded up the store. And I went and talked to Ryan. I was like, "I don't think we should stay here." We were talking about moving down here at some point anyway, kind of all relocating at the same time because of working together. And I was like, "I just don't feel comfortable. I don't think things are going to go well." I live in a row house next to some people that I know I can't trust. I just, and he was like, "You really feel like you should go?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, if you feel like that's the right thing to do, go ahead and go." He thought I was crazy. People we worked with thought I was crazy. Everyone thought I was crazy. And then I think we were out the next week or week and a half. We got out, got a house, moved to Florida.
Wow.
A month later, everyone was going, "How did you know?"
Yeah, how did you know?
And I was like, there were just things like the liquor store and the plywood and that pudgy woman in Wawa that made me go, I don't want to do this. I'm gone. And I didn't know Florida was going to be any better. Florida at that point was quarantining everyone for 2 weeks if they came from Pennsylvania. Of course, I had Alabama tags on my car, so I mean, I was safe. I didn't have Pennsylvania tags. But yeah, and then we got here, and then things got better. But I mean, like, for the first little while, it was just as bad here as it was anywhere else. Everything was closed down. Everyone was wearing masks. Masks are coming back, which just, right. I had to wear one today because I do want to keep my tattoo artist.
It's always
But
the
it's the
tattoo
first
guys
time.
that are pushing it now for some
Why
reason.
you'd think that those rebels would be like, "No, we're good,"
Yeah.
but they're not. And I'm like, I was so frustrated because I was like, "So do I have to wear this? It's just you and me." And he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And there's no mandate, so it's just him and his people being afraid. And I was like, "I guess I'll do it this once." I think before that, I wore one time at the dentist, which was the weirdest shit I ever. Yeah, let me put a mask on at the dentist.
Yeah.
Like, what do you? How's that gonna work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a hole in the mask?
No,
So-
it was literally, they made me put one on at the front desk. I then was walked to the office, and they said, "You can take that off now." And so
I
I
had
think
I had an endoscopy later this year, which anybody who knows what an endoscopy is, they insert a tube down your throat. They put a mask on me that had a hole in it.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. And I kind of looked at her and she looked at me and I was like, "Okay, let's wear the mask." Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
dude. Sometimes, and like you talk about being spiritual. One of my kind of spiritual gifts is like discernment. And so and you could, I felt like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, it definitely is, when I left and then all of the crap hit the fan. I was like, okay, I made a good choice, and I made a good choice of where to go to and all of that. I was like, the Lord is good and his mercy endureth forever.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's something that I didn't think about, but that is something that you gain from spirituality. Is kind of a sense and a connection with your, not just your gut, what people would say, but like your conscience, your inner self, your light, or something that's inside of you, your spirit, and that's connected to God. And God kind of will give you those little, God will give you trials, definitely. No,
Yeah.
no judgment there. We need trials to grow, but I think God gives you these little signs, these little, and some people will call them synchronicities, but they give you some sort of clue as to what's going to happen, or something that might be a better decision for you. And I don't know, I think she's been a pretty good decision for me. So, so both of you are married, not to each other, but to other people. How long have you been married, Cam?
I have been married. It'll be 8 years in October, and we have 5 children.
I know.
Wonderful.
That's great. You're
beautiful
so busy.
and loud.
We hear them on the show sometimes.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, on the propaganda report. Yeah.
I remember listening to one of the DMVs this week, and you're like, "Yeah, if they don't shut up, I'm going to give them COVID." Just cracking up.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
Jessica,
man.
how long have you been married to your husband?
We've been married 9 years, but we've been together for 21 years. We've been together our entire adult lives, basically, like almost directly after high school. I went to England for a year when I was 18. I came back when I was 19, and I got together after that. So yeah, we've been together a while.
Or as I call him on the show, as to not dox him directly, Kevin.
Yeah, I should have said Kevin. Damn.
No, but
to his credit, you guys were asking about how like the COVID thing affected our relationships. He did not buy any of this COVID stuff from day one. So when I was making him strip down every time he would come in from the outside, I'd be like, take everything off. I have to wash it. Like, go take a shower. I was like, the first 2 weeks, you don't know.
Yeah.
It might really be something. So I was really kind of panicked about it. He said nothing about this adds up. To this day, every day he comes and shows me some COVID data on his phone that I just don't want to look at anymore. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like
I was right.
But to be fair to him, he had his finger on the pulse the whole time, and he wasn't buying any of it. And it's created some uncomfortable situations for us. He steadfastly refuses to wear the mask. So, I'll have to like go into a place by myself and get out real quick, because I will wear it if I need something. I'm gonna wear the mask. But we were at a party
Y'all still have that there?
What, the masking?
Yeah.
So it entirely depends on the area that you're in. If you're in a really populous area, a lot of them still have masking mandates. I live out in the far-flung country, and it's all rednecks out here. So there'll be a sign on the door that says you have to wear a mask, but no one is wearing one. So yeah. So I like where we live. There's a gap. My neighbor flies a Gadsden flag, if that gives you any idea of where I live. And I'm happy about that. So but yeah, if we go the nearer you get to the city, the more likely you are. There's a salon that sells a very specific product that I can only get from there. So I will wear a mask to go in there to get that specific product. But Kevin will not. So he'll wait for me in the car. Bless him. But we were at a party last week, and the friend of ours told us that several people had asked what the ratio of vaccinated to non-vaccinated was going to be at the party. And it was only he and I who had not been vaccinated. And that was too many people for some to come to the party. And I thought, oh gosh, how good are these friends of ours that they didn't exclude us instead of, because it could have gone the other way. Our friends may have decided to exclude us because we are not vaccinated and everybody else was. We are the odd ones out in that scenario. So I was actually really grateful. I recognized kind of my place in that. And I was like, oh, this might get dark before it gets lighter. We might start being excluded by friends and family before. And I, toe to toe with that, I'm still not going to get this vaccine. I don't trust it. Yeah. And if it means that I'm not going to get invited to some of my life events, that's sad, but I'm not going to be bullied into it.
Yeah. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want an experimental vaccine that seems to give people myocarditis. I mean, sounds like fun.
Such a good deal.
It's like my brother lives out in California, and he just every bit of it he's bought. And so like he'll do those little emotional abuse, emotional manipulation posts,
shaming
where
what it is.
He's got his little Band-Aid on, and he's like, I can't wait till Christmas this year. I can't wait to get back together with my family, provided that they have the vaccine. And I'm like, I'll die on this hill. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because that's you excluding yourself. It's not me excluding you.
Yeah.
That's your choice. And if you want to do that, go that way, go that way, man.
Well,
My husband's, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
My husband's father has a heart condition, and he called him today because my husband is a scientist. That's what he does for a living. And so he called him today and said, "Hey man, what do you think of this vaccine? Do you think I should get it?" I mean, and they had a lengthy discussion about it. And what came out in that discussion is that his uncle got the vaccine and got the what is it called? Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yeah.
Right, from it. And his doctor said that none of your blood relatives should get this vaccine.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And, I'm kind of like, oh, well, if it wasn't clinched before, it's clinched now, because I'm not willing to risk my husband over this.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, I had a full length conversation with my own doctor about it. And his explanation to me was, your risk from the vaccine is extremely low. The chances that you'll have a complication from the vaccine are very, very low. Your chances that you will get COVID and have a problem with it are very, very low. So if you want to get it because it will give you peace of mind, feel free, but you don't have to. And I said, well, that is just such a reasonable position. I just did not expect that. I expected him as a medical doctor to be like, no, you have to get it. You should get it. But no, he had a very reasonable thing to say about it. And I appreciated that because, at my age group, I'm not really at risk. And so why am I going to introduce additional risk with the vaccine that is not necessary?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah, not to mention that the risk of the vaccine is actually higher than your risk of dying of COVID.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that
It's
right?
like, yeah, they're not even equal. Like, in your age bracket, your health, you don't have any comorbidities that I know of. So I mean,
I wouldn't know about him either. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, with all that in mind, no, I think the amount of vaccine reactions that are bad is like 1% or something, and you have less than 1% chance of dying of COVID. So it's cost benefit analysis.
One of the charts that my husband ran up to show me on his phone recently was, there's this index of deaths that they can't identify the cause of. And under normal circumstances, the percentage of deaths that they simply cannot find a cause for is extremely low. Medical science has gotten to the point where usually we cut you up a little bit, we find out what happened.
Yeah.
For some reason, that number of deaths we just can't explain has shot through the roof. I don't know what the percentage fold it is, but it's a hockey stick spike of deaths that we cannot identify the cause of. And I feel that they are purposefully underreporting the number of people who are dying from complications from this vaccine, because they have so heavily bought into the propaganda surrounding the vaccination that to turn around now and say, oh, we've actually encouraged millions of people to take a deadly medication that we didn't even have approved by the FDA before we fed it to you, would result in
the FDA anyway.
Such a massive loss of credibility, a loss of an already shaky, broken credibility, that they simply cannot do it because the peasants would gather around the castle and burn it down. So, do what you want for your own peace of mind. But as for this gal, she's going non-GMO.
Yeah. So one, I have a shirt that says not 100% non-GMO human.
I know.
I was joking. I was considering a tweet about calling vaccine havers mudbloods, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet.
People are not going to take that the right way, Cameron.
Yeah, that would have gone horribly wrong.
Well, that's the stuff. That's the juice, though. But one thing that's interesting is up until I think 2016, the 3 leading causes of death were heart disease, cancer, and then respiratory illness. And since then, the 3rd leading cause of death isn't respiratory illness. It's gone to 4. The 3rd leading cause of death is medical errors, medical malpractice.
Yeah.
So those are probably a lot of the numbers that are like, oh, we don't know what happened.
Wow.
I'm in healthcare. They make a lot of mistakes from every portion of the healthcare field, from the doctor's office, misdiagnosing things or not taking the time to really get to know the patient, their history, what they eat, which is very important, what their exercise regimen is like. And then all the way, through hospital. Hospital is a business. If there's nobody in the beds, they don't make money. That's how it works. So these beds do need to be filled. Otherwise, you'll have hospitals shutting down left and right. And then all the way down to the pharmacy. Do you know how many pharmacy mistakes occur every year?
I've seen It's a Wonderful Life. I know they happen.
That's a great reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's like 100,000 deaths occur from wrong products, wrong drug. Well, I call them products based on work, but they're drugs, wrong drugs. Yeah. Drug interactions, or people just taking too much of one thing. That kind of contributed to the opiate crisis a little bit. And it's I'm quickly learning, being in this field, how much it's not about health and it's about the money behind.
Yeah.
And the prices of drugs have gone exponentially higher and higher. It's kind of funny that you just walk across. I mean, we're in California. You literally just walk across the border, and I can get ivermectin there. I can't get that here.
Just go to the feed store.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, you can get it. You can get it at the feed
I
store.
think so, yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Apparently a Mississippi man was hospitalized the other day for taking horse ivermectin.
Oh my god.
Because they use it to deworm.
You have to change the dose. If you do go to the animal store for it, you have to change the dose. You can't take the horse dose. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
I had undiagnosed gastroparesis for 2.5 years. And the number of medications they threw at me before anybody actually bothered to do an endoscopy or an ultrasound on me, they gave me SSRIs before they bothered to look to see what was going on with my stomach, which is, I had a left side pain. So the first thing that they should have done is check my pancreas. But it was even a year before that happened. And they put me on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Thankfully, I'm really bad at taking pills. Like, I just don't like to do it. And I just don't, so fortunately, I probably won't have a lot of the permanent side effects that people get when they take SSRIs who don't need them. But finally, I had a gastroenterologist listen to me. I had an endoscopy, and then they said, oh, you have a damaged vagus nerve. Your food doesn't go through your system at the speed that it should. And they were giving me antidepressants for that. Yeah. So that tells you how much these people are really trust the scientists, right, guys? Trust the experts. Yeah, they're not paying attention.
No.
Random fact: Kurt Cobain did heroin. And I know that that's not the whole fact, so don't stop there. It's not just, hey, let me tell you a little bit about the lead singer.
No, that's true. He did that.
He did heroin, and the reason he said he did heroin was because he had such bad stomach issues that were never diagnosed. And so I'm not saying that he killed himself, because I truly believe Courtney Love did that. But I am saying that misdiagnosis of stomach issues can lead to heroin use. So, maybe the doctor should look a little more.
I chronically used cannabis for 20 years. And part of it had to do with, the stomach discomfort. I could have gotten heroin if I really wanted it.
Yeah.
I'm connected like that. No, but cannabis was the only thing that would soothe my stomach. And I overused it because it was the only thing that soothed my stomach, which, led a lot of people to think that I had mental issues. And so since I'm clean off of cannabis now that we've actually identified what was wrong with me, I don't use cannabis anymore. And if you had told me at the beginning of the year that that was possible, that after 20 years of chronic cannabis use, that I wouldn't use it anymore, I would have thought that you were crazy. But what a proper diagnosis can do for a person is night and day. So anybody out there going through it and everything that you're trying is not working, keep going, because if you land on the right thing, it'll change your life.
How do you define chronic cannabis use? Because we define cannabis as chronic inside, we're in California.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking about I would smoke it from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I was using it, like it was definitely a crutch for many, many issues, a lot of which stemmed from my gastroparesis because I had no idea what was going on with me. I was just in constant pain. And it was, cannabis has that effect on gastro issues. It calms gastro issues. So I still use CBD oil to help deal with gastroenteritis pain. But for the most part, now that I understand how my body works, I can eat in such a way that I don't cause myself pain. And so I am medication free, aside from I take vitamin D, obviously, because
That's what
people
Kevin's
who
for.
people who people who have died from COVID had low vitamin D.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a good idea if you can supplement your vitamin D, why not? But aside from that, I'm medication free. I'm no longer on Wellbutrin. I'm no longer on Xanax. I'm no longer on the multitude, which there were 7 at one point, gastro-related medications that they had me on, some of which make gastroparesis symptoms worse.
Wow.
Right. And it wasn't until I met one doctor who said, "Hey, why don't we look at your stomach?" Like
That must be where the problem is, right?
right. But left side pain, the number one thing they should have checked should have been my pancreas. So if I had a pancreas issue, it would have advanced to the point where nothing could have been done about it because they were trying to treat a mental illness that didn't exist. They said, "Oh, your stomach is cramping because you're stressed. Your stomach is cramping because you're depressed. You have anxiety." No, my vagus nerve doesn't work. I don't have anxiety. I have gastroparesis. So all I'm saying is just go until you find a doctor who will, treat you the right way and actually listen to you. If you feel that your doctor's not listening to you, you don't have to trust the experts. You go find another one.
Yeah. My mother-in-law almost died during this process because of doctors that just wouldn't look at the issue. She kept having, like, what was her symptoms again?
She was having back pain. She had a fever of like 100, over 100.
It would,
oh my God,
5 days straight.
would not break.
It would not break. And she kept trying to get help. And they kept telling her, go get tested for COVID. Go get tested for COVID. And she kept
oh my God.
And it was negative.
Always
and
negative.
Like she'd go to urgent care and try and get a doctor to just lay their hands on her, like feel her, try and see what's going on. And they'd stand behind a glass and just look at her and say, go take a test. So long story short, she just had a UTI.
That's my God.
After
Wow.
seven COVID tests.
She was to the point where her blood was septic. Like she could have died. It was a pretty intense situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember.
How many people are missing cancer screenings because of this attitude? How many people they're missing infections because of this attitude?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I just remember
it's horrific.
Sitting in the emergency room with her, and she's just like had her head down, just suffering. And I'm just looking around. Everyone's like coughing with their mask on. I'm sitting there without a mask, taking a chance. I didn't care. I didn't think it was real. And hey, I survived. But yeah, it was just a terrible situation. Terrible.
I'm glad that someone finally listened to her. It's amazing to me that after the negative test, they didn't pursue the issue. Said, "Oh, well, you must be perfectly healthy then. Just go home."
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah. They kept her. They put her on an IV and of antibiotics and just trying to get her electrolytes up, and she recovered. She lost a lot of muscle tissue.
Yeah.
No
she
doubt.
works out a lot, so losing muscle tissue for her it's it's hard to walk.
Yeah.
You know, it made it hard for her to walk.
And I also think of the poor people sitting in the hospital that can't be visited by their family members. I think that's been the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like today, my grandpa, yesterday he had surgery. And just to go pick him up, you can't go in the hospital unless you're vaccinated. You can't go visit him unless you're vaccinated. You know, it's getting to a weird point.
And they wanted to like show her something, like so you can help him here. Let's show you how to do this thing.
So, yeah.
And oh, you can't come in, you're not vaccinated. Can you get somebody here in your family who's vaccinated so we can show them? Like they just straight up, we need another set of eyes, but they refused to let her in. So she had to call her sister because her sister is vaccinated and work something out. But how many hours did you have to probably sit there and wait?
But I mean, it is good to see nurses and doctors stand up. I mean, there's a lot of people standing up. My aunt's a nurse. She's standing up to the mandates that they're trying to implement at her work. I feel like the white pill that's going to come out of this is people, doctors, nurses, other specialists setting up outside of the system. And
Yeah. We need them.
Looking forward to that. I think it's going to happen. People are not going to give in. I think the tide's starting to turn. I think so.
I hope so.
Yeah. Would you guys like to offer our audience, so we kind of had it a little tough there for a bit with the COVID sadness, offer a white pill to our audience to kind of break us through this sad portion of the reality that we live in?
Someone's been listening to us. Well, it's funny because hope isn't a hard thing for me to have. My wife doesn't understand it. I swim in cynical circles, but I'm an optimist at heart because I used to be a cynic, and then I realized how shitty my life was when I acted that way. When I approached the world, and I'm saying, there's a lot to look at. You have to be realistic, but I have 5 children. I lost my job a couple months ago, and I got a new one that's right now it's not making as much, but I guarantee you it will within a year. I'm doing a show that I like to do. I was talking to Jessica. Well, I think I did it directly on Twitter, but I was on TikTok because I'm hip, and I saw this guy. His name was Shannon Ainsley, and he was attacked by 2 great white sharks at the same time, and it was caught on video. And then I found out later on that he's actually been hunted by orcas as well. He's a surfer. And I was like, I want to talk to someone who's been attacked by 2 sharks at one time. And I had this moment where I was like, I have hope in a lot of different areas of my life. There's a lot of stuff that's rough. But the fact right now that I can just say, yes, I can go to Jessica and say, hey, you want to talk to a guy who's been attacked by sharks? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like it could be interesting. Let's do that. And I don't have to be like, okay, so how do we tie this into libertarianism? How do we like, I don't have to do that anymore. It's freeing. I'm a lot freer than I was. And that's just hope to me, is the fact that, I moved to Florida. I was able to get some freedom, and I did that on what most people would say was a whim or was crazy. But like there's a lot of good in all the bad, and it's hard. I would say it's hard to read the news and not get depressed, but I don't. And then I just did 2 weeks of reading it every day with Brad, and I still am I'm not depressed. I'm just like, I have this way of laughing at the most horrible things I read because this is absurd. And I don't know, this is a long-winded way to say there's a lot of good out there. There is a lot that you can do to change the circumstances, to remove the things that make you depressed, to build your own life. And when you come to the conclusion that it's okay to not try to change the world, that it's okay to not try to change the country or even the state you live in, but to change your life, to tend your garden, to play with your kids, to work on you. That is the most freeing thing I think you can do, because they're like, I'm a millennial. You both look like millennials.
Yeah.
We were all, I don't know about you. I'm this is an assumption, but I was told my whole life that I could change the world, that I could be anything, that you know, you're a world changer, you're a history maker. And that's a lot of pressure. And oftentimes people prioritize the world ahead of themselves and ahead of their families. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. And it's freeing when you stop making that mistake.
So true.
Yeah. Jessica.
Long-winded ass.
I always stumble a little bit over this question, and it's not because I lack hope necessarily in my life. I feel like I have a overabundance of it, to be honest. But one thing that comes to mind is that even though the world is like on a dark turn right now, there have been much darker turns than this. And even in those dark turns, if you look through the annals of history, you can find people being happy under incredibly dark circumstances. And I look at that and I'm like, you know, no matter what happens, that little like kernel of joy and wonder and awe at, like, you know, the beauty of nature and our families and love and all that stuff, no matter what they do, they really can't take that away from us. That always remains strong, that always remains true. And you know, they only take that from you if you let them. And so, you know, I don't give them permission to take my joy. I own that. It belongs to me.
Also, tattoos and bourbon.
Yeah.
Ball peen hammers.
Beer helps. Yeah.
Those are such powerful words.
Yeah, I
that
love it.
I think we can take, and the whole, family's everything. You know, working on yourself. That's what we're trying to do. That's our goal here. We're working on ourselves, and we're trying to leave here and start something new, start a different life up in Idaho, and maybe, you know, do a homestead, grow our food, and take care of each other, and maybe start a family and do the whole thing. And I think that these are things that we were taught growing up, that why would you do that? Like you said, Cam, and why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's when Jeff Deist came on our show, it was a throwaway line almost. He said, if you have kids, and you should have kids, and he continued his point. And I cannot recommend that advice enough. Like I have 5, mostly because I like my wife. I mean, maybe I like her too much. But there is no joy in this world that I've experienced that eclipses seeing, and you guys are medical, so I'm sure you could handle it, but everyone thought I was crazy for just like watching that baby come out. Their heads are they're cone heads. It's super strange, but it's like you see that little wisp of hair, and it's just like I cry every time, like a little baby. And I think that anytime you come across a thought or a person or a situation that can cause tears when you're happy, you need to try and live in those spaces, because there is a lot of darkness. And I mean, we're in the middle of a freaking horror movie challenge right now, and and it's like I'm seeing more darkness than normal, but you need to find the beauty, and you can't live in the beauty. Like that's not possible. You can't live in unadulterated, constant happiness. but you can make a camp there. You can find a place of peace and set up your tent, and more people need to do that.
I heard a song today that I'd never heard in my life before, and it's probably one of my favorite songs I've ever heard. It was so amazing. So I went through 38.4 years of my life never hearing one of my favorite songs. Today I heard that song. And it was like, if I had given up any moment before this, I would have missed out on one of my favorite songs. That would have been a tragedy. Oh. So yeah, keep plugging away, because your favorite song is just around the bend.
Jessica, what is the song?
Oh, it's see, now I forgot the title. It's by the hold on, I need to bring it up now. It was written in the 60s.
It's called I Love You, You Love Me. It's by a purple dinosaur. He's great, very smiley, lots of grins.
It's called
loves children.
It's called Time Has Come by the Chamber Brothers. Okay. And it was written in the 60s. It's an older song. And I heard that song today and I'm like, this is an amazing song. And I'm a really big fan of 60s and 70s rock. So I'm like, I can't believe I've never heard this before. And it's this amazing song. It'll probably be one of my favorite songs for the rest of my life. And I heard it today. And it's just like, wow, if I had given up at any other point before this, I wouldn't have heard one of my favorite songs. That favorite song, I didn't even hear it until I was 38 years old. And that's awesome, just to discover new things that you love all the time. So
awesome.
It seems contrary. I'll say the last thing I'll say, but I know you're trying to like wrap this up. I know.
Oh, no.
I'm long-winded.
Please.
Oh, please.
I'm just gonna say,
I'm loving
for
this.
someone who's very pro-hope, I like sad songs and I like look-back songs.
Me too.
My favorite band, well, it's hard to say but my favorite band is the Avett Brothers, or the Avett Brothers.
Yeah. I know them.
If you two songs that function in that way that bring me joy every time I listen to them are Murder in the City and
such a good song.
It's a fantastic song, and No Hard Feelings, which I think is off their last record. Like every time I listen to those two songs, and I'll give you one more song, because you said songs.
We love music. We love
John I've got Foreman two more too now that we're doing it.
John Foreman did a song, I think it's called I Won't Let You Go. There's a YouTube video with him and Lauren Daigle. The song is called I Won't Let You Go. And if I ever feel down, that is a song that I listen to, because I don't know, I believe that life kind of happens in the tension. And it happens when you're stretched, and joy comes out of the tension. Like there's no baby coming from the birth canal without the pain that comes along with it. There's no sunrise without the dark of night. And these are songs that meet in the tension of sadness and joy, not happiness, joy. And I think that for me, those are the songs that I play on repeat, are the ones that remind me of the sadness and that there's something far more beautiful going on.
And if I may suggest two songs, they're not necessarily sad songs, but they, I think, remind me of the beauty. Like keep your eye on the beauty, keep your eye on the simplicity. There's a band called The Elephant Revival, and they do a song called Sing to the Mountain. Or I'm sorry, it's called Sing to the Moon. It's Sing to the Mountains, one of the lyrics. And then the other one I think is moon related too. It's There's a Ring Around the Moon. And Elephant Revival's entire lexicon is amazing, but those two songs are really good.
Okay.
We love music, so the recommendations, you guys can just send them to us, because we'll keep listening to. We have a little modest record collection, and she is super into music. I was not. I played music since like 6th grade. I was a band geek. So
oh, cool.
And I was drum major for our high school. Not that I'm bragging or anything, but
I was in private schools and homeschooled for high school. I don't even know what that means.
That's good. You don't have to know what it means. Homeschooling is probably better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got annoyed with music. Like it became more of a structure type thing, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
in it as much until this one pulled me out of my shell and took me to concerts and made me get out into mosh pits and what live music truly and it is kind of a spiritual thing at the same time.
Yeah.
That's right.
I will give you one more recommendation. You'll find I'm a very Americana folk type listener. There's a band that they're not together anymore. They're out of Birmingham. Their songs are on Spotify and Apple Music and all that. The band is Wild Sweet Orange. It's all one word, I think, or maybe it's not. I don't know. You can find it if you type in Wild Sweet Orange. But the name of the album is We Have Cause to Be Uneasy. And if you want to hear, the way I would describe that band would be a summer thunderstorm.
Ooh,
That sounds beautiful.
it's one of my favorite things.
It's like beautiful, and there are a lot of solid lyrics and heart-wrenching lyrics, but there's also, I love a singer who has a breakdown in their voice. So they're not necessarily vocal fry. I do like a good vocal fry. Everyone talks so poorly about vocal fry, but it has its place, damn it. But there's this one song, forget Aretha's Gold, and he has this little breakdown in his voice, and it's like I live for that moment in that song.
I love those moments in songs.
Yeah.
When it just hits you all at once. You're yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
I can't even describe it because it touches the soul inside of you in a way.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It's awesome.
we're
Thank
gonna
you guys
we
for
have
those
like we're gonna have to
recommendations.
make a Mad Ones playlist.
Oh yeah, let's do that and put it on our website.
Yeah, we'll put it on.
Sounds awesome.
We should do that. Okay.
Awesome. Well, can you guys let our listeners know where they can find you and all that good?
I kind of have one more
Oh
question.
yeah. Sorry.
Can I
I
ask
Oh
didn't-
yeah, go for it.
like random question for you guys. What color is your brain?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think with all the pot I've smoked, there's probably a green tinge at this point.
Black, just dark black, like the comedy that comes out of my face. Like that's it's just darkness, and then there's this little spot of light, that like these little lights shining underneath my bourbon. It's just like, hey, I'm still here.
Oh my God.
It's the same hand motion you made when you talked about the woman being pudgy.
Yeah, you did that too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I love some good hand motions. China.
Oh my God.
This has been great.
It's been a
guys.
blast talking to you guys. You're welcome back on the show anytime.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just amazing, and
Yeah.
everything you had to say really resonated, and I really thank you for staying up. Appreciate it.
on this auspicious of occasion, Rand Paul's
yeah.
birthday.
That's right.
Ron Paul's birthday.
Ron Paul's
Ron
birthday.
Paul,
Sorry,
Ron
Ron
Paul.
Paul's birthday. I screwed that up.
He's the
Even
one
better.
who morally challenged me when I was in college and changed my life and my view of violence and how we use it.
Cam had a Ron Paul moment. I had a Rand Paul moment. Mine's not as cool.
You both came to conclusions. It's okay.
Oh, man.
All right. Do you guys want to let our audience know where they can find you?
You're so much better at this,
Absolutely.
Cam. You do it.
Well, I do know all the things. If you want to listen, we are on all the podcatchers. If you search my name and don't find it, tell me so that I can yell at whoever works at that company. So it's just the Mad Ones. You can also listen on our website, wearethemadOnes.com. We are on we're on YouTube, and that's where we primarily stream, because the comments are so much cooler on there and we can have a little bit more audience participation. But we're also backed up on Odyssey, and we're on Rockfin with Monica and Brad. They're on there as well. So if you want to listen to our whole back catalog, Rockfin's the way to go for that. I'm on Twitter at Cam Harless, and this lovely hair cover lady with the hair coverings on Twitter at Soup Canarchist. I keep making Twitter handles for her whenever I feel like it, and she'll take me up again at some point.
Yeah, because I'm not necessarily sure if I'm an anarchist anymore or not. Like soup canarchist, I'm not sure applies anymore, but it's so clever. Like I don't want to get rid of it because it's so funny to me. It's like I'll let them believe I'm an anarchist just to keep the clever Twitter handle just a little bit longer.
It works. It works.
It does.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll stop the recording and everything and talk to you after. But thank you so much for coming on, staying up, and we appreciate you. And we hope our audience appreciates you and goes and checks out the Mad Ones. I know I haven't picked a shirt yet, but
Yes.
I'm gonna order one.
Yes.
Thank you for having us on. It's good to talk to someone who has actually listened to anything we've done, because it seems like a lot of times I've been on other podcasts in the past, but it's like people don't know what I'm doing because it's just like, oh, hey, I'm using this to get up on this ladder, and it's really nice to talk to people who actually have some knowledge of who I am, and y'all were just lovely. So the thanks is reciprocated.
Awesome.
Never been called lovely before. I take that as a huge compliment from you.
Well, I did want to say congrats on having a beard, because you gotta, as a man,
He's
you
talking to
gotta have a
Buffalo.
beard.
Yeah. I had one this morning, but I had to clean up for the show.
Do you know how excited I get when I see a bearded lady? Like it is true. It's like seeing a white elephant. Like it's the most wonderful of things. Bearded ladies, I love you.
Yeah, you see the hair on the upper lip and you can't stop staring.
That's a little different. I'm talking about the women who have the full beard.
Is that
Like they're a rarity in nature.
Oh.
You have like some sort of hormone disorder that makes you grow a full beard. And at some point during their lives, they said, fuck it, I'm not shaving this thing off anymore. I'm going to be who I am, the bearded lady. And I love you all so much. I saw one in a gas station. I nearly jumped out of my skin with excitement.
Oh my God.
Did you want her autograph?
I couldn't get to her in time. She got into her car, but I nearly screamed. I grabbed my husband. I'm like, bearded lady.
Oh my God.
The only bearded
She
lady.
sounds like she'd love you.
Yeah, the only bearded lady around here is at Venice Beach. So
Yeah.
maybe we should go check her out.
Maybe.
Tell her I love her.
Out of respect for Jessica.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll close it up with saying the most important thing that we should close this up with, and that's fuck Sean Astin.
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
We hate Sean Astin.
Alrighty. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the False Reality Check podcast. I'm Buffalo Rambler,
And I am Legs.
and you can find us on falserealitycheck.com or on Twitter
Yes.
at FRC Pod.
FRC Pod. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean at False Reality Check. If you'd like to support us, swanbitcoin.com/false reality check.
Or we take donations from Cash App and PayPal. We will set that up soon
Yes.
on the website.
But yeah, send us an email though. frcpodcast@protonmail.com.
We love hearing
We
from
love
you.
hearing from you guys.
Send us pictures and
Yes.
connect with us.
Yes.
This is a community after all.
And we want to hear from you and connect. We're not crazy. We're not all crazy.
Just a little.
Maybe just a little.
Thanks for listening, guys.